Hello there, my beautiful internet and you fantastic creatures of the beyond. So, have you ever struggled with doing interesting designs and thinking how to improve your designs and why they look so off sometimes? And I was just thinking today, like, what is really a good design? And I think, and maybe I've talked about this in the past, but good designs are related to good imperfections. So how do we make these good imperfections? Well, let's take an example. So let me get myself the guides here, and let's draw a rectangle. Let's actually make a square. Good. Now, if I'm going to duplicate this and move it somewhere here, and let's say I'm going to, oops, not like that, like not even like that. Let's say like this. Let's duplicate it. Oh, come on. Okay, let's make it something like so, maybe even more. I think I've discussed about this shape in the past as well, but if you look at the two, which one looks heavier to you? And if it's the one on the right, well, the answer would be obviously incorrect because it misses a bit of material, so it should be lighter than this. But our brains are not made to see things like this. From our perspective, we look at this block and we think, well, like, this is just like symmetrical and it's robust. There is no stress into it because we put a lot of feelings in how we see shapes. Shapes have a lot of character to them. And especially like very sharp edge shapes are very imposing. And in this case, we look at the support underneath and we think like that is supporting the weight of the bigger piece on top. Obviously, it's one piece altogether. But in our minds, we think like this support beam is taking a lot of stress from the weight up top. In reality, the stress or the weight ratio that applies on both of these pieces is negligible. But from a design point of view, this one looks far more interesting than this one because this one is very plain, very boring. There is nothing interesting happening. Well, this one we can even go further, like for example, I could take the node tool. Let me add some corners to it. So let's say we take these corners and we go like this. Bam, we already made it so much more interesting now. Now it has a lot of things going on around it. And your brain is usually focused on details. So when you're looking at certain details that have to go in certain places, that you feel that they look right, then the design becomes so much more appealing to you. And of course, from here we can go further and further and further. But you saw, I didn't start directly with this shape. I didn't design it from scratch. Just start with a basic or a fundamental shape, and then we carve our way from there. We just do tiny little tweaks. And let me give you another example. Let's take another one of these beautiful rectangles. And let's actually make it like so. Let's also give it a different color. I'm gonna make it maybe a bit blue. Oh, I really like this color. Okay, so looking at it, it's interesting, still plain. And well, let's actually put it somewhere else so it's out of view, so it doesn't distract us with the other shapes. Now, in its essence, it's an interesting shape, but maybe we can do something better with it. So let's take it like this. And let's actually snap some things on it. Okay. And now I'm just going to, I don't know, take another rectangle. Do it like so. Let's just take this shape over here, right? Good. Now I'm gonna make a few fast modifications to it. I'm gonna add a path effect with where is mirror symmetry, and let's add this mirror symmetry beautifully placed over here, and then we're going to add a second mirror symmetry on the Y, and let's just move it down here. There we go, very beautiful. And I don't see any gaps, which is really nice. Now, in essence, we did the same shape, but let's do something fun here. Let's actually add a bit more geometry to it. And let's actually drag this one down. Maybe push this one a bit further. Take this one like so, extend it a tiny bit. And now let's look at it. Maybe I can even push it further than this. Maybe a bit more. And we can even push this a tiny bit, but we can see there's quite a difference between the two shapes. They're very small tweaks. This one is kind of losing it right now. But the point is that it looks far more organic when we're going to do it like this. Still, I still need to tweak it a bit. Maybe I exaggerated it too much. But as you can see, there's controls all over the place if you know where to place them. So this shape doesn't feel so abrupt when this, well, the circumference of this circle is reaching this line over here. Here we're trying to make it a bit smoother. And the difference isn't that obvious, but when you have a design, you do pick up on these little details. They feel natural, they feel organic, they feel fluid. And it's really, really nice now. And clearly this requires you to tinker with it, but now if I'm gonna go and just apply it, just press Ctrl plus. Oh, actually I need to apply it to flatten. Oh, I forgot to combine this. Well, whatever. Yeah, sometimes you have to be careful when you're using symmetry, so that you either fuse the paths or you make them as separate. But still, in this case, it's my small mistake here that I wasn't careful. But there are so many more things that we can do. Like, for example, let's take a circle. Sorry, not this, an ellipse. And let's look somewhere else. Let's push the ellipse like so. Let's make it a different color. Okay. Now, if I'm gonna duplicate this, let's make it a bit darker. And just push it inside like so. Now again, we made this ring, but it's, I don't know, very symmetrical, very simplistic, very boring. Sometimes you need to add a bit of variations. Now there are two ways to do that. The first one would be for you to just do a circle, convert it into a path, and then kind of make it a bit fat. Not too much, don't exaggerate. But you know, when you're offering a bit of deformation, it changes everything. Our eyes are designed to see things from left to right. And usually when we're looking at the horizon, we scan across. But usually we don't look from down towards up or up to down. So it's more inclined for our eyes to look on the horizontal than on the vertical. And we can't really appreciate how proportionate height is in comparison to the width. And we can get away with this and make some interesting shapes. Of course, now in this case, if I duplicate this and I want to make it, I want to shrink it, it's not a good idea. In this case, I would recommend using an offset to keep the proportions right. Let's go with a minus, I don't know, minus 100. Something like that. And we can kind of see, well, the difference between the two colors is a bit drastic. But we can kind of see a difference. This one feels a little bit more natural than this one. This one feels too roundish, too proportional. This one has a bit of bounce to it, a bit of squish. It feels like it's personal. It has a feeling attached to it, you know? But there is another way to do it. We can do it actually with a rectangle as well. So, oops, I didn't use the rectangle. So I can use a rectangle like so. And I can go all the way to make the circle, but I can just go up a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. Not too much. Just before I reach this. See, I leave kind of these flattish surfaces. Now I'm going to duplicate this. Let's make it darker so we can see the difference. Again, use the offset. And I'm gonna go with minus 100 again. There we go. And now let's look at it. Again, it feels very personal. Of course, if you want to kind of lose this flat edges, you can rotate it a bit. Maybe not that much. Let me just... Oh, did I enable snapping? Okay. Can kind of rotate it a bit at a certain angle. And it just looks different. Maybe that's too much of an angle. Sometimes it's nice to exaggerate with certain things, but when you're doing small tweaks, don't exaggerate too much. Also kind of gives the impression of motion, because we have these flat surfaces and they're a bit angled. It kind of feels like it's going to fall into place. So again, playing with small tweaks it can get you a long way. So looking at all of these things in a nutshell, let me just make them smaller. Well, actually, let me put them like so. You can kind of see that this one is exaggerated a lot, but it still feels goofy and nice. So when we look at them like this, these ones feel so much more distinct than these ones. And that's the whole point of design. You don't have to focus on things like this. Always prototype with these basic shapes, but don't stop at this. As you have seen, like in most of my designs, I just use the Bezier tool because I kind of like to make my own shapes, even when I'm trying to make, for example, a circle. Well, I'm not gonna make a perfect circle, but the imperfection is what makes it so much more interesting. Obviously, this is a horrible circle what I did here. Let's try this again. Well, actually this is a trick. You can kind of drag it like so to start with an angle, then you go like so, and then we kind of eyeball it. It's gonna be a bit flat on the bottom. Maybe I should make it a bit lower. And then go here. And then we close it around here. And then I kind of correct it. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Yeah, I have to kind of correct it. And this one should be a bit more like so. But this imperfection gives them personality. See, it doesn't have to be perfect, although still it's a bit exaggerated in my case. But you have to kind of think of it like drawing on paper. When you're drawing on paper, you are imperfect. You're just designing the idea. Now this looks a bit better, but we see these bumps around. But still, it feels like it's handmade. It doesn't feel artificial. And in a way, this is what makes artists differentiate from designs that are made by AI. AI don't tend to make a lot of mistakes. Sure, they make unintentional mistakes, and some of those mistakes are horrible because they don't feel natural, and you can instantly see they feel like they're trying to simulate something. But a human hand is very sensitive, and when you're doing your design, you're not only thinking with your fingers and the palm of your hand, you're just transposing your feelings from your mind into your shape. So in my opinion, this shape for me feels right. Obviously, make designs that make you feel happy, that makes you feel comfortable with your designs. They don't have to be perfect. They have to convey a narrative, a message. And if you find it very difficult to get to a design that feels natural, you can start with the Fibonacci ratio or the golden ratio. And the golden ratio is something like, let me make a square. We actually need to, okay, let's make it, I don't know, let's make it 400 by 400 here. And you have to, actually not this one, on the white. The Fibonacci ratio is 0.618. So we multiply this with this. Actually, first let me make a duplicate. Let's make this one a bit brighter. And now let's modify it. So multiply it. Actually, let's make it 1.618. There we go. It can be minus 0.618 or plus 1.618. I couldn't find the words. Okie dokie. So how does the Fibonacci sequence work? Basically, you take this square, you duplicate it, enable snap, we put it like so, and then I press Control and I drag the corner, then I go over here, place it like so, hop, then I go here, place it like so, and there we go, hop, then we go like this, and we can continue as many times as we want. We will never fill this space, there will always be an empty space. I can go an infinite amount of time, there will always be an empty space. And this is kind of like the one third rule. Because if you divide this into thirds, it's not exactly a third. But if you kind of eyeball it there, like where this line is starting, let's say we're making all of this. Oh, come on, all of this, we're making them a bit darker. We can see, like, in comparison to this ratio, this is kind of a third, almost. It's around there. And the point is for you, because I can demonstrate, if I'm gonna come with this, it's not exactly a third, you see? It's a third, it's 2 and something. 225. No, not 225, 260 or something like that. Anyway, so you can kind of orient your eyes to place things to feel more natural. Like if you have a subject, don't place it in the center in your composition unless you really need to place it in the center, and you can give a lot of spacing to it. You can put things in the center like when it's a logo or when it's a button, but let's say you're designing, I don't know, a girl. You want her to be kind of shifted either to the left or the right. I usually tend to put them to the left, my subjects, and kind of leave more space here, because I feel like when I'm looking at something, all the details have to be on the left first, and then the eyes have to take a moment of relief and see some negative space on this side. So for example, if I want to create something like so, let's put a different color on this. And you see, I kind of let the details fall into place where they are. So I try to leave a generous amount of space. They don't have to be equal either. You can make them equal if you want, but again, avoid repetition, avoid symmetry. Try to make it as natural. Try to position them as natural as possible. Right now I'm using fundamental shapes, but as I said, usually I tend to just use the Bezier tool or the pen tool and kind of make my shapes as organic as possible. And what are the advantages of having an organic shape? Well, basically you have freedom, it's natural, it has a flow to it. What else? It's also kind of unpredictable. You don't know where you're gonna go with it. And also it feels delicate, you know? Like when we look at our shape here, this looks like a bubble soap a bit, you know? It's being suppressed to the laws of physics around it, like gravity, the direction of the air of the pool, and so on. So obviously this is all in my mind, but if you have this in your mind, you can do a lot of interesting things. So like, for example, let's try to make an interesting shape like so, you know, just it could be anything. We could try to make it sort of like a paintbrush if we want. And again, be unpredictable. Don't follow something fixed. But try to kind of connect the curves. So for example here, this one is an incorrect curve because we didn't create something like so here. So if I press Ctrl to kind of make it a bit more natural, see? And again, the handles don't have to be symmetrical either. Try to drag your shape, see how flexible it is. Again, it's delicate, it's fragile. But you have the controls. You decide how steep an arch should be. And a little tip is like always try to make, like for example, if you make something like this, this handle is going inside. Obviously, it's not gonna feel super pleasant. It's still doable like that, but I usually tend to leave it like so. I try to keep the handles quite a distance away from the edge. If I'm gonna go on the exterior, I keep them like so. If it's in the interior, again, I try to not go too much into the outside. Like for example here, this one could be more towards this edge because this one is shorter than this one is longer. And then it's also like this S shape, so yeah, you have to kind of feel where they have to fall. And if you want continuity, again, kind of try to, this handle should intersect with this one somehow, you know, like if I would continue this, they would intersect somewhere. But if I put them like this, they're gonna be off. So if I put them like this, the line becomes a bit smoother. And look, it feels already better. Again, you have to kind of pull it until it feels right. It doesn't have to be perfect. And small indentations are there to give it personality. But again, like this one is too steep for my taste over here, so I might push it a bit higher. Maybe it's too fat, so maybe I can push it a bit like so. It could look like an eye from here. You decide what you want to do with this shape. You can go like so. Could be glasses, could be a claw, could be a stinger from a scorpion, could be so many things. But it has personality, it has feelings attached to it. Because that's how you convey art. Feelings, personality, happiness. Maybe some chocolate. Chocolate never hurts. So yeah, try to design your shapes with small imperfections, small variations. Fluidity, flexibility, make them natural. Even invent new words for them. And if you really need to use the golden ratio, go for the golden ratio, but try not to learn it mechanically. Try to kind of train your eye to see where shapes should fall into. You know, like if it feels right, it felt there, it's perfect. Because believe it or not, other people have the same eyes as you. They might see a tiny bit different, but more or less they kind of perceive shapes in a similar fashion. Obviously they have different feelings attached to them because colors also play an important role. Like if we go with something more passionate like red, or if we're gonna push this into a yellow, but let's make it a brighter yellow, maybe I'm feeling more adventurous. Let's go with a orange that's very strident like this. You see how much it changes your mood when you look at this shape and how you perceive the color in comparison with the shape. You can also kind of associate colors with shapes to some extent, because for example this blue feels good here, but if I take the same color, the same shape, and I don't know, I'm gonna give it a dark, it already feels too imposing, too sharp. Of course we can soften it up with a bit of a blur, and that kind of takes the edge away. Or we can go with a navy blue, or we can push with a darker red, but this already feels like a different shape altogether if you really absorb it. Again, if we go with something like a green and we turn it a bit brighter, okay, it changes so much the mood. It's more, I don't know, this feels like the color of the sky, while this one feels the color of the grass, or maybe this is the color of the ocean. Again, you intake things with how you associate them. It could be a plane, it could be wide, but the ocean is so much more vaster. So is the sky. So this one feels more openish, while this one feels more flat. Again, so many ways to interpret it. This one looks like a grape. Because I like grapes. But if I would change it to red, maybe it looks like a cherry or something, or an apple. Again, you make the rules. What colors and shapes should they present for you? Well, I hope this was informative and it can help you improve your designs, and try to kind of default to the pen tool as often as possible. Well, I call it the Bezier tool because I always press B to remember it. Just play with shapes. They don't have to be perfect. Of course, if you're making a map, maybe perfection is better there, but see. Oh, and one other thing which is interesting, you can make your own fonts. Of course, it takes a bit of practice to make fonts feel natural. You want to make a text for a logo, you could just follow the basis of symmetry, but again, when it comes to corners and making them rounder, try to just pull your vectors up and down a little bit, change their angles, not too much, but then put them side by side. Also, one thing to keep in mind, like for example, if I'm gonna go with text and let's say I'm gonna type here hello. Okay. Oh, I actually don't know how to get out of the text. I have to click this. Okay, so let's take this hello. And let's take a custom font that we have here. Let me just get the fonts. Where are they? I constantly forget about text and font. Okay. So I think this is a bug because it technically works. I don't know, I have many fonts here. I really like this new feature, although I don't know where the scroll bar is. Maybe I should drag this more. Yeah, a scroll bar would be very useful. I'm looking for a font that's a bit, well, maybe something like, well, that's too much. This one is difficult to read. This one is nice as well. Okay, something like this, for example. Let's apply. Oh, there's the bar. Sometimes it has to appear. I don't know, maybe I haven't seen it. Now, if you have a font like this, let's say maybe you want to make it manual, and you see like the thickness of the lines are different from place to place. It's very important. So a way to kind of identify if your font looks good is to just duplicate it and actually press H and rotate it on the other side. Now at this point this doesn't look like a word anymore, but if you look at it, you can kind of see the way the shape feels. Does it feel natural? Does the thickness of each letter feel in sync with everything? Does it feel like it's out of place? Does it feel like it's leaning too much? Sometimes you might create a letter and it's too angled to the side. Of course, there are techniques to do this, like you place them in a box and so on and so forth. And this is an exaggerated text. Clearly, you will never start with this. But if you want to make like a text that's, I don't know, let's take a different font. Okay, let's take something like this now. This one feels better, you see? If I apply it here as well, I can find it. Can't find it anymore. Well, whatever. It's somewhere. Blender script. Let's look for Blender script. Oh, it's reset it. Damn it. Okay. I didn't realize that. So now we look at it. It looks really nice on this side, but here we can observe the way things are set. Also, another thing I just realized. Think about how you position things. Like, if you look at this set of items over here, let's make a bit of space. You see, it's balance to it. Of course, let's take this example. I'm gonna take this, and if you want to make things a bit bigger, and then you keep them the same color. This is to create some type of unity, you see? And I kind of create different shapes, but I try to keep the distance between them kind of the same, but fill in the space so it doesn't feel too empty. Like, it feels there is a balance between the shapes. They don't lean too much onto one side or another. Like here, I feel like there should be one more thing, maybe not so big. You see? And it already feels really nice. And of course, if I want to make it even more, well, already it's exaggerated at this point. But maybe, you know, things like this, you want to keep them in close proximity. And they just feel good. And to kind of balance these things out, you put them on a background, obviously not this background. Let's try something a bit more. That's too much. Ah, come on. Maybe something like, well, or maybe we can do a border. And I disable the color inside. And we can kind of see where things have to fall in place. I'm just gonna make this border a bit thick. Let's go with that 10. Or maybe let's try a 30. Oh, this border also has a bit of... okay, gonna make sharp edges so it's easier to see. So you can see, well, maybe the border is too much. Let's try to kind of put it a bit less. Okay, that's better. So you can see like these things are falling into their right place. They're not too imposing, and the negative space, maybe I can even make it a bit to the left to have a bit of breathing room between them so they don't feel so squeezed through. You know, play with dimensions. Don't try to make everything, like in this case. Well, I like to work with round numbers because it's easier for me, but in this case I can go with 8250. It's not gonna be much of a difference, and 5180. There we go. It's much easier to organize this way. And of course you can also do the same for the dimensions of these circles to whatever you like, but try not to be super accurate. My accuracy is kind of born out of fixed dimensions for canvases, But again, it's not a rule that I always have to follow. Just make it feel natural. There are many ways to make designs interesting. Of course, if you're gonna make something more amazing, then try not to create too much repetition. You should go for variety. Like for example, in this case, maybe I want to make a rectangle here. And let's give it like this powerful. Okay, I'm gonna play with the color here. Maybe desaturate it a bit. Maybe even more. And a bit lighter. Now I just turn it a bit. See? Already like next to each other, they look complementary in a way. And then I can go with, I don't know, I can bring this one, and maybe I can put it on the side like so. The orientation also has a feeling to it. Like how these things look, see? Already it feels like these fall in place. Also, proportions are very important. Like this one feels so much more tinier than the rest, but it depends on the volume. Like this one, I feel like it needs to be a bit more imposing to kind of complement like this empty space here, and this one is too roundish. So since we have like very sharp edges and corners, we kind of have to impose this simpler shape. And of course, we can do many things to it. But the important thing is like I'm not trying to keep everything circular. Sometimes a bit of sharpness in certain places can help and take you a long way. Like in this case, maybe this shape doesn't feel too great. Sorry, take the Note tool. Maybe I want to pull this to make it again. Don't have. Okay, like so. Or maybe I want to add something different here. Oops. And I go like so and so. And you see how much it changed? Maybe I'm gonna push it a bit more. Again, prototype with your ideas. Don't try to just say this has to be perfect from the start. Make mistakes. With happy accidents come happy results. And if you really think about it, all the great logo designs or designs in general, they didn't happen overnight. They have advanced over the years. And this is because there is a design philosophy, like you have to, with each mistake, like for example, here I made a mistake, right? Because I have went with this handle inside. But I can correct this by going here and creating a new handle. And now I can kind of make this shape a bit more organic and natural, see? Again, this doesn't have to look like anything, but if we start shading it, and we can do so many cool things inside of it. From simple shapes, you create more complex shapes. Yeah, enough with the theory. Hope you guys really enjoyed this small exercise of mine. It's really nice. And again, zoom in, zoom out. It really helps to put things in proportion. Sometimes it's more indicated to work in one predefined zoom, so you don't lose too much of the perspective. But I tend to zoom out a lot because you have to think, like if you're going to make a graphic design for a vector or vector art, this vector art will be applied on various things, like let's say a mug or a banner on the street or maybe an airplane, you know, so it has to look good on every surface. and every size, but also from every distance. Like if you're looking at an airplane flying and you can identify the shape, in your mind you can already connect it to something that you have seen before. And of course, all I've done here is very flat surfaces with flat colors, but then when you pair it with gradients, and maybe I can't stress this enough, but gradients are such an important tool. It gives so much weight to what you're designing, especially the way you use gradients. Like let's say I make them like this, I changed the angle a bit. Now let's look at it from the outside. You see, it gives this three dimensionality. I didn't do much. Obviously the objects around it also help. I can also make a gradient on this one, for example. I don't know how it's gonna look. But again, gradients also kind of dictate where a light falls. So if I'm gonna make this a bit darker, maybe it's not dark enough. See, it also pulls the gravity, like the shapes. Well, of course, there are many ways to do lighting and highlights and shadows. You can also use different, like for example, you can imagine like there's a spotlight over here and the light is falling in different directions. And okay, this one, let's push it like so. Sometimes you don't have to go all the way. Maybe you want to give it a bit more saturation to make it more natural. Like let's try on this one as well, a bit more saturation. You see how much it gives this heaviness on this part depending on how you use these colors. Maybe this one can also benefit a bit from being a bit darker. And of course I used only the linear gradient. Here maybe I should have used, let me try to change it into the circular one. And I really like this option that they added, so you can turn the, well, it's for the linear, to turn it 90 degrees. Maybe I did talk about it. Okay, let me turn it on the other side. Let's make it bigger. Well, I'm not succeeding too much on this one. Maybe I should darken it just a tiny bit, not too much. Maybe that's too much. Anyway, I'm not trying to make it perfect, you see? Still, this one isn't good. I don't really like it. I'm gonna just undo it. Keep it how it was before. Because it feels like the shadow is inside. All those shadows inside, actually that's quite a good idea. You see it's kind of falling here. Maybe I should push it harder. And it gives this impression of inner shadow. And it feels like this is popping out. Of course, you can even evidentiate this better by making some gradients to the interior, making a circle inside and making some gradients in there. But again, negative spaces can do a lot for your designs. Quite a lot of techniques here. And also, let's also touch up on some other things, such as perspective. Like here, if I want to transform this, well, I'm not sure exactly. Maybe I don't want to destroy it. Oops, what did I do? I don't want to work destructively, so I'm going to make a perspective for envelope. And I'm going to hopefully work it like so. Well, this is exaggerated, but now if I look at the shape, how did it transform it? No, but why can't I get the... it's overlapping here. Yeah, this kind of sucks. And I don't know what to do exactly unless I just pull this a bit higher and then try to get this. No? You see? Super awesome. Now we changed so much about this. Obviously I did say keep the sharp corners, because if you're gonna have the everything rounded, it's starting to become a bit monotone and too mute. So I'm just gonna keep this because I really like it. Yeah, there are so many ways to do things like this. Of course, we can stay here and discuss about how to make depth a field for a design or for a logo, and how to drop some shadows to make them look more three-dimensional or floaty. Oof, there's so many versions that we can go through. Just be inventive. Okay, guys. Hope you really enjoyed this insanity of mine, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Stay awesome. Bye.